Alright, I was working on my Q&A, editing up the video, picking some questions here and there. And while working on it, some massive news came out, and I decided, hey, you know what? This could hold off. We gotta wait on this. So if you guys want to ask questions for the Q&A, the Q&A is still open, so comment in the comments section below. Big UFC 300 news. We just added a new fight, 2 new fights. One of them we're obviously going to spend a lot more talking about. I'm talking about Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway for the BMF title. Now, this fight I have been saying that the UFC should make since really I started this channel. I had told you guys time and time again, this is the fight to make just in general. I mean, you got a guy in Max Holloway who is pretty much unbeaten in the featherweight division except for Volkanovski. Like, if Volkanovski wasn't in that division, we'd have been talking about Max being the champion for such a long time. And Justin Gaethje, a guy who, at one point I would say about maybe a year ago, he was kind of looked like as a trash can. Like, if you guys remember, he was coming off of that Oliveira loss. A lot of people were writing him off in that Fiziev fight. Then he beats Fiziev, and then he knocks out Dustin Poirier. But Justin Gaethje has really come back as of recently, right? And he is now the BMF champion after knocking out Dustin Poirier, and he is set to defend his BMF title, which I know this is kind of a fake title, but let's just bear with me here. He is set to defend the title at UFC 300. Now, this is a big fight. Should it be added to UFC 300? Can Justin Gaethje beat Max Holloway? And what are my thoughts on the other fight that was announced? Tune into the end of the video. I'm going to touch on that fight there. But before we get into it, I want to remind you guys to subscribe, like, comment, and share. It really helps the channel because the more you guys, interact with the video, the more it suggests the video to other people. So if you guys want to help me out, I would suggest please comment and like and everything like that. But let's get back to the main point. Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway is set to take place at UFC 300. Dana White made another one of those big videos where he announces a bunch of fights. And I gotta say, for the UFC, just my advice, I think they should probably get more fights and then announce them all, because I think they should just do a big drop. I'm not liking this. Oh yeah, one day we're dropping fights, a couple days later we drop a whack fight and a normal fight. Like, seriously, I think they should wait, maybe a week or something, a couple weeks, and announce all these fights. We would have gone crazy. But I think looking at this matchup, I think there's a few questions. What are some challenges both of these guys are going to face in this matchup? Number 2, who do I think is going to win, right? Like, I mean, this is a very close fight. I think a lot of people are split, but I could also say someone favoring one person over the other, and we're going to get into that there. And finally, does this save UFC 300? But let's get to the first question. What are some problems that both guys are going to face? Well, let's start with Max Holloway, right? I mean, right away, we know Max Holloway is more of the boxer type, right? He does have some underrated kicks, dropped Volkanovski with a head kick before it was cool, and also has some nice spinning attacks and things like that. So Max Holloway is pretty good in the kicking department, but we know he mostly uses his hands, right? Another thing that's very interesting is Max Holloway's size, right? He's been a 145 pounder for a while. Last time he went to 155 was that fight with Dustin Poirier, an interim title fight, where he lost. It was a very close fight. He lost that fight, but had some success, but we also saw Dustin Poirier do very good in that fight. So right off the bat, I mean, we know that those are going to be some obvious challenges, right? We know that the weight is going to probably be an issue. We can probably assume Gaethje is bigger than him, but Max flash fought the Korean Zombie back in August, so we don't know. Maybe he knew he was going to lightweight next fight. We don't know. Maybe this was always his plan. Maybe he's been building up a little bit. Personally, I've said this for a while. I'm sick of Max Holloway 145. I want to see him at 155 and stay there and commit. I know that might be an unpopular opinion, but I'm sick of him beating all these guys and being second place. Maybe if Poirier wins, maybe there's a path back to him at 145 where he could potentially get a title shot, especially if he beats Gaethje. But personally, I'm more wondering what happens if Max Holloway does gain that size, does gain that strength. Can he beat guys like Islam Makhachev and other top 5 guys? Another thing to talk about when you look at this matchup is the leg kicks of Justin Gaethje. Is one of his most dangerous weapons. We know that he batters the legs of a lot of his opponents, and let's be honest, that's what hurt Holloway in that fight with Volkanovski, were those leg kicks, especially in that first fight. And it's just how Max stands. He's very heavy on that lead leg. He's more of a boxer rather than just a regular MMA fighter. And Gaethje's new style of being very patient, using the jab, outboxing, and mixing in those leg kicks, being patient, waiting, even being good on the back foot, that might be a problem, because I think Max Holloway will probably pressure Gaethje in this fight. And historically, we've seen Gaethje kind of fall apart when he's on the back foot. Look at the fight with Khabib. Look at the fight with Charles Oliveira. And another thing to talk about is, will Holloway's chin last? If anyone's going to crack that chin, I'd say it's Justin Gaethje. Gaethje mixing in the leg kicks, mixing in those body shots, mixing in those hard combinations. The guy has really hard punching power. If he can eat the shots of Justin Gaethje, will Gaethje gas, right? Will Justin Gaethje get sick of hitting him so hard? This is a 5-round fight. If it gets those 4th and 5th rounds, can we see Holloway take over? But who do I think is going to win? This is a very early prediction. I usually like to study some film, and honestly, I usually find that my prediction changes when we get to fight week. But right now, my prediction, seeing that we're a few months away, I'll just go ahead and predict it. I'm going to go with Justin Gaethje. I think this is a good matchup for him. I could see him using the leg kicks, and I honestly do think that'll TKO Max Holloway. I know it sounds crazy, but the last time he fought at lightweight, right, it was 2018 against Dustin Poirier. And Poirier isn't one of those guys that has one-punch knockout power. It's usually because of an accumulation. He does hit hard. I do think he's going to crack Max Holloway's chin, and I think if it goes those later rounds, I think we can see Max Holloway do a lot better. And if it goes first 5 rounds. Like, dude, both of these guys are going to the hospital, like, for real. And I just don't think that Max Holloway has enough power, especially coming from 145 pounds, to get Justin Gaethje to back up. I think he's going to be using the jab, using the leg kicks. I think he's going to pick him apart, and I'm going to probably predict maybe like a second to third round KO, TKO, something like that. I don't think he'll be out cold, but yeah, I think this is going to be the first time we see Max Holloway get knocked out. Now, before I answer the third and final question that I brought up, right, does this save UFC 300? I first want to announce that smaller fight I was hinting at in the beginning of the video, which is Jim Miller versus Bobby Green. And this, I think, was the best matchup we could have picked for Jim Miller. Interesting that they didn't even wait for Paul Felder, which I think was a good move. Paul Felder didn't really seem super committal. If you're not 100% sure and you're even questioning it, going back and forth, you're not ready. There might be a time where Paul Felder's like, you know what, yeah, I definitely want to return. Right now is not the time. I think maybe he's got to commit a little more. You don't want to go into a training camp already questioning, should I even be going back? So it's weird that they didn't wait for him. I would have figured that they would have tried to make that matchup. However, I think this is a better matchup. People were already talking about Jim Miller should have gotten a top 15 opportunity, and I think this is probably the best matchup for him in Bobby Green, who is coming off of that brutal knockout by Jalen Turner, and I laugh because that was a terrible stoppage where Bobby Green took a lot of unnecessary damage, like career-altering damage right there, and Jim Miller did look good right in that last outing, and he's on a 2-fight win streak. He's going into this trying to get a 3-fight win streak, fighting up the division. I think it's a fun fight. You know, 2 older veterans, they have never fought each other despite always being around each other, and I think it's a fun fight. You know, we've seen Bobby Green take on guys like Tony Ferguson, take on a lot of old guys. I think this is the best matchup you could have done. You could have maybe fed him to a young lightweight. I'm glad the UFC didn't do that. I'm glad that they made an even matchup where you're truly like, I don't know who will win this fight, and this is a good opportunity for Bobby Green maybe to bounce back with the win in the top 15. Maybe you can get a higher ranked guy. And let's answer the question you guys want to hear: is UFC 300 saved? Now, something interesting about Dana White's video, he did not say this was the main event, which I would have figured, hey, this would be the main event. I would have figured that's probably the biggest fight you can make right now, including Pereira, right? I think unless you're going to do Pereira and Jamal Hill, that might be as big of a fight, but even then, I think that one kind of pales in comparison to this fight. And while a lot of you guys should say, oh, the BMF title shouldn't headline UFC 300, it's not a real title, I agree, but at the same time, it is the biggest fight you can make. Justin Gaethje, a guy who has been around for a while, but Max Holloway, a guy who's been around for even longer, who deserves this opportunity. And Justin Gaethje is also another big name that you could add in there. I think that's the best main event you can. They didn't say main event. They also didn't say it wasn't the main event, so they could always change their mind. They could see their options. I just think it should definitely be the main event over Pereira versus Ankalaev. I do not want to see that fight, nor do I care. So does it save UFC 300? I think so. I think this is a massive, massive win for UFC 300, and I think it was looking pretty grim. I think we were expecting Pereira Ankalaev, you know, Leon versus Bilal, and that was just kind of a good pay-per-view, but not UFC 300 worthy. But yeah, I think now we're starting to get some good matchups. The card is looking very, very good, and right now I think it's getting to the level where it is exceeding UFC 299, which a lot of people did not think they were going to be able to do. But UFC 300 is still some time away, and if you guys are looking for a video on UFC 297, I have one up now where I predicted the main event, went into grave detail. I reviewed the film and all of that, guys. Thank you guys for watching. You guys are the best fan base in MMA. Comment in the comment section below for the Q&A. Let me know your questions. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.